Ingrid Newkirk with Peter, reminding us it's easy to be kind by choosing fake snake over real skin for belts, bags, and shoes.
This song. Welcome back to One Life Radio, everyone. This is Bernadette with Diamond Gray, Aviana Barrientos, DeWone Bennett, and one of my favorite guys, Dr. Dan Engle. He's an MD and a practicing psychiatrist, board certified in psychiatry and neurology. His current practice combines functional medicine with integrative psychiatry to enhance the foundations of regenerative health and peak performance training. Dr. Engle is the author of the book, The Concussion Repair Manual. I've got it right here in my studio. I had it in my hand a minute ago, but it is a practical guide to recovering from traumatic brain injuries. I love this guy. He's a rock star. DrDanEngle.com is where you can reach him. And welcome again, Dr. Engle.
Oh, it's good to be with you again, Bernadette.
Yeah, I'm full of energy today.
She's always excited when you come on.
I am excited when you come on. I just absolutely love having very intellectual conversations with you. I do. And ketamine is definitely something we all need to know about. So can you give us a history of this drug and where it came from, what it's used for traditionally, and what's happening now with the FDA?
Yeah, ketamine is a fascinating pharmaceutical and molecule. It was initially used, its history is actually in veterinary medicine as a horse tranquilizer and anesthetic.
Wait. Okay. Oh, my God. So isn't there a drug like from back in the 80s or something that was a horse tranquilizer too that like screwed people up badly, right?
Same thing, right?
Yeah,
Angel
ketamine.
Dust I'm thinking of? What am I thinking of?
Right. Well, ketamine is an analog. It's very closely associated with angel dust, which is PCP.
Okay.
And as many pharmaceuticals do, there's cross-utilization between the veterinarian world and human studies and trials and efficacy. So many times pharmaceuticals are proven for safety in veterinary medicine first, and then they get moved over. And ketamine does have a abuse potential. So a lot of people have misused it historically and used it recreationally and at high doses, which can get dangerous. But to get back to, and we'll get into some of that as well, but to get back into the backstory, because this is where it gets kind of fascinating, is once it started being used for human studies and usage in surgical care medicine because it's an anesthetic, many surgeons and treatment providers recognized that their clients going through surgery with ketamine who had major depressive disorder or severe depression oftentimes would come out of surgery with a significant improvement in their depression.
Wow, really interesting.
It got people thinking like, wow, how's this working? Why is it working? Because it turned everything in psychology upside down. At that point, it was thought that the standard of care was psychotherapy, so you had to talk through your problems, and that the SSRIs, or the serotonin-specific pharmaceuticals, were the new promise for depression. Well, ketamine doesn't work that way at all. Ketamine works fast, it works quick, it works on a completely different receptor profile. So it turned everything upside down in psychiatry. So it started being used in the 80s and into the 90s as an off-label use for treatment-resistant depression at that point. So ketamine's been legal and been available in the space for depression as an off-label use for close to 30, almost 40 years, and it has a lot of data to support it. It's off-label use, and it needs a prescription, so it's actually considered a Schedule III medicine or pharmaceutical because it does have an abuse potential, and people need to be aware of that when they opt into using it. But it's got a phenomenal backstory for people with severe depression that was treatment resistant to many pharmaceuticals and other interventions, And after just a few uses, many people have had significant improvement.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it because of the ego death? You know, because I talk with my friend about this a lot. We talk a lot about psychiatry. And by the way, DeWone Bennett, who's in studio with us today, is currently in the process of finishing up his PhD in clinical psychology as well.
Hey, Dan.
So, yeah.
Hey there.
So this is a great conversation to have with you guys. But, you know, the ego is what really causes a lot of problems with our ability to be undepressed, if you will, or to be happy, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes, very much so. And I think your intuition is accurate. In my experience, the best use of ketamine is in the setting of ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, or what's called CAP, K-A-P. And that's because it does offer an altered state for us to see deeper aspects of our consciousness that maybe weren't available in our usual day-to-day experience. Mm-hmm. And through getting into the deeper process, there is part of that starts to unravel what would be called the ego death, and that's a bit of a dose-dependent kind of process. So at a lower dose of ketamine or some of the other new novel and mind-altering substances that are going into phase 3 trials, for example, like MDMA, going into phase 3 trials right now, psilocybin going into phase 3 trials right now, also for depression, MDMA for PTSD. These medicines have an opportunity, typically in a dose-dependent fashion. At a lower dose, you don't get as much of this quote-unquote ego death, and at a higher dose, you do. So that like in Michael Pollan's new book, How to Change Your Mind, he describes the default mode network as this address of the ego, kind of where the ego lives. Mm-hmm. And there's this down regulation and lowered impact of that default mode network to be driving the ship, so to speak. So the ego has a little bit of a buffer or a reset with these medicines. And then when that happens, you get into the deeper material, and it's easier to get in touch with what our deepest fears are and our insecurities that our usual ego defenses don't allow us to access. Because they've been protecting us against them.
Well, we have so much outside stimulation that it's very hard to get into that deep state of meditation. You know what I'm talking about with the float tank. That's why the float tank is so powerful. And that's what drew me to open that business years ago. It was incredible what I experienced in a flotation sensory deprivation tank, because my mind, I think for the first time, was able to really release the outside world, if you will, and figure out naturally what was going on inside my head.
Yeah, flotation. I always enjoy our conversations on flotation therapy because I'm as excited about that as any other thing, an advancement in medicine, because like you said, it offers people, anybody can go into a float tank. Mm-hmm. Where something like ketamine, you have to be screened, there are risks, there are side effects, but everybody can float, doesn't matter how old you are, young you are, etc. It's an accelerant to meditation because it helps us get in touch with deeper aspects of ourself. Mm-hmm. Very different than the way medicines do it, but that sensory deprivation experience allows the mind to have a new perspective and see some of the subconscious material come up. And it's fascinating that some of the deepest early research in both flotation therapy and in ketamine therapy were by the same guy.
Really?
John Lilly.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name?
John Lilly.
Oh, John Lilly.
Why?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I've met John Lilly. I met him in Oregon years ago when I was there for a float tank or a float convention.
Burn, you know everyone. I'm learning that.
No, he was super cool, and I'm trying to think. And I actually have pictures of him with some other people that helped me facilitate I did a. Oh my gosh, I changed the technology on flotation tanks, how to keep them clean has changed several times over the years. And someone I can't think of his name right now. He's a fabulous, fabulous guy. It'll come to me probably when we go to break, but it is incredible. And I'm thinking about, and I know you've read this book. I just know that you have, The Natural Mind by Dr. Andrew Weil, right? Have you read it? Yeah. And I that was one of the most fascinating books I've ever read about the mind, if you will, and drugs and the connection that we have. I think that we all naturally, like Dr. Andrew Weil wrote in the book, The Natural Mind, we have almost a necessity, if you will, to take our mind to a higher place.
Most definitely.
Right?
Absolutely. We are hardwired. There's a similar book from another great research called Joseph Chilton Pierce. He wrote a book called The Biology of Transcendence.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes into the research about how we are hardwired for transcendence, or what's called ecstasis, or these elevated states of consciousness. And we're not the only mammals that do this. Dolphins do this with pufferfish.
Wow.
When they bat around pufferfish and release just enough of that toxin, not so that it's neurotoxic and detrimental or fatal, but just enough that they essentially get high.
Wow.
And so it's quite likely that it's embedded into the deep mammalian brain, this desire and experience for observation, investigation, exploration, and what the most fascinating arena for exploration and investigation is within our own mind. It's within our own self.
Well, and you know, Dr. Engle, the drug now is finally approved by the FDA in a nasal spray, so it's available for people. What was it you think that changed their mind?
I think the data was so good, and it turned, again, the next evolution. We're always constantly evolving industry and fields, and particularly fields of medicine. And ketamine is one of those fascinating molecules in pharmaceuticals that is turning the entire psychiatric paradigm on its head,
mm-hmm.
because the monoamines or the serotonin-specific medications and all these antidepressants that have been promoted over the last 40 years or so have not been that effective. There was something called the STAR-D trial in 2006, or research investigation into 3,000, I think, cases across the United States for treatment-resistant depression using pharmaceuticals, and less than 30% of people using these pharmaceuticals for severe depression experience remission.
Mm-hmm.
Less than a third.
Wow.
So obviously the model is not complete. And ketamine is one of those that is showing extraordinary benefit. It works faster than pharmaceuticals. It can work within 24 hours, even with somebody with severe depression, and it can last up to a couple of weeks in just one dose.
Wow.
So
Well,
it's doing something new. It's doing something novel that we haven't seen before with these other compounds. And it has its place, too, because depression is one of the strongest epidemics that we're experiencing, and not just nationally, it's globally.
yeah, it's
Chronic depression is the number one disability according to the World Health Organization globally, and it's only getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's time for us to look at novel treatments.
Well, and we spoke with Dr. Gabriel Cousins yesterday. I have some ideas.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And I have to tell you, we talked about the spiritual connection between vaccines and the truth about vaccines, all these things. And so I was thinking this morning while I was drinking my coffee, is there a connection between the over-vaccination of the world and this increasing depression in the world as well? Because I just think there's a connection. I could be totally wrong, but I'm just trying to connect the dots like everybody else. So, but
yeah, well, that's why we appreciate what you do and getting the good word out. And I also know Gabriel, Dr. Cousins, really well, and so I'm glad you had him on your show. And
I love him.
This is an example of how you bring different thought leaders to start putting together the information and connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's part of the benefit of having so much information is we can really surf a wide field, but at times we're paralyzed by having so much information because we don't know where to start.
Yeah, well, I've got a ton more questions for you, Dr. Engle. You're going to stay with us, right?
Yeah.
All right, everyone, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Lots more to learn.
Did you know that the U.S. Department of Health actually patented cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants? So clearly there is promise for CBD to help with a variety of issues. H-Hemp's U.S.-grown CBD system is fully tested for purity and safety. For daily balance, H-Hemp has the best-tasting CBD tinctures available. Their Super Breath Blast delivers near immediate relief and relaxation while on the go. And the Magic Balm works wonders for your muscles, joints, and temples. Relax and feel better naturally with the H-Hemp CBD system from hemp.com.
Burn here. I'm so excited about Sun Warrior's new soil-based probiotic. Just like any ecosystem, your digestive system thrives best when it contains a wide variety of microorganisms that can complement and interact with each other. Sun Warrior's probiotics increase native gut flora, restore the gut-brain connection, aid in digestion, support normal bowel function, and support immune function. Shop Sun Warrior probiotics at sunwarrior.com. That's sunwarrior.com.
Hi, this is Sean Wells, certified sports nutritionist, registered dietitian, and